Well, if we visit an ancient city, like Athens or Rome, what we can see there is segments of the ancient walls that once protected the city. But the walls themselves have been breached dozens of times over, and plenty of modern roads drive directly over spots where the wall once prevented access to the city. The result of this is that the walls really cause little interference with the layout of the modern city. Well, unlike most of these ancient cities, in Jerusalem, where the walls were last updated in the 16th century, under orders of the Ottoman Sultan, Suleiman the Magnificent, this is not the case. The walls have not been breached, and with the exception of one gate, the New Gate, as it's known, built about a century ago, one enters and exits Jerusalem today at the exact spots used for centuries, and in the case of some of the gates, even millennia. Of course, Jerusalem has grown well beyond the old walls on all sides. This fact means that the area enclosed by the walls, known as the Old City, represents only a small ancient core of what is a much larger modern metropolitan or semi-metropolitan area. The Old City, which is only about a half to three-fourths mile wide at any given point, is densely built up, with roads that were obviously in place long before the invention of cars, meaning most of the roads in the Old City are only accessible by foot. Today we will examine the 7 gateways you may find yourself using if you visit Jerusalem's ancient areas. Beginning on the west is the Jaffa Gate, named after the road which you can take from there west to the ancient village of Jaffa, near modern Tel Aviv. Jaffa was the port from which most European pilgrims and visitors would arrive in the Holy Land, going back at least 1,000 years to the Crusades. While most European and American visitors now obviously arrive from the Ben Gurion airport, and not by sea, most will still access the Old City by first entering through the Jaffa Gate. It might be seen as the most western of Jerusalem's entrances then, and not just literally. The Jaffa Gate can be entered through the gate itself, or more common these days, through a large opening in the wall just south of the gate. This is one of the very few places where Jerusalem's wall is breached, with room for taxis and small vehicles to enter the city, either to drop people off and turn around, or from there, they can take a small one-way road which hugs the west side of the Old City and exits through another gate. The opening was made at the end of the 19th century so that the visiting entourage of the German Kaiser, Wilhelm II, whose political support the ruling Ottomans were courting, could enter the city in grand procession on horseback. This grandiose entrance did not receive universal appreciation, and in deliberate contrast to this, the British general Edmund Allenby made it a point to enter the city with his troops on foot after they had conquered Jerusalem during World War I. The Jaffa Gate is flanked by a large defensive barracks called a citadel, known as the Tower of David. It includes an impressive stone tower with a base which dates all the way back to the Second Temple period, the time of Jesus and the Apostles. Excavations inside the citadel have also revealed what's left of the ancient city wall from this period, toppled by the Roman army, making it quite possible that even 2,000 years ago, people would enter the city from a gate very near this spot. Moving north, we find ourselves at the New Gate, built near the turn of the 20th century. This gate leads to the Christian quarter and is primarily used by those wishing to access that portion of the city, and by Jews heading from the Old City into Western Jerusalem. It was built to appease Western European nations who had cultural and financial interests in the new neighborhoods butting up north of the city wall, again by the orders of the Ottoman Sultan. Thus it is sometimes called the Sultan's Gate, or the Gate of Hamid, after Abdul Hamid II, the name of the ruling sultan when the gate was built. In appearance, it is similar to a simple archway. This is because by the time the new gate was built, city walls and their gates were no longer a fundamental part of defensive strategy, as we had moved much closer to what we now consider modern warfare. East of the new gate is the Damascus Gate, and here we find one of Jerusalem's oldest active gateways. Excavations underneath the Ottoman Gate have revealed evidence of the original Roman archway. built to mark the entrance to the Roman colony Aelia Capitolina, which the Emperor Hadrian built over the ruins of ancient Jerusalem in 135 AD, about a century after Christ visited the city. The Romans built on the north end of Jerusalem, in areas that were traditionally less populated. The probable reason for doing so is to avoid the thick debris of the ruined city to the south. Inside the gate, there was a large forum, flanked by a huge column visible in the Medaba map of the 5th century. This column gave its name to the gate, which has survived into modern times in its Arabic name, Bab al-Amud, the gate of the column, a name which baffled later Arab historians living in a time after the column had already been destroyed. And it's largely in modern times that we've come to understand the meaning of the gate's Arabic name. The gate was known as St. Stephen's Gate to the Crusaders, a name which was later transferred by Christians to the modern Lions Gate. Leaving the Damascus Gate, you enter the neighborhoods of Palestinian East Jerusalem, and the area around the gate itself has a very Arab world feel in contrast to the Jaffa Gate, for example, earlier discussed. The same may be said of the next two gates we will discuss. The easternmost gate of the Old City, on its north side, is Herod's Gate. The area around the gate was known to the Crusaders as St. Mary Magdalene's Postern. By Ottoman times it was still a mere wicket gate, but by the end of the 19th century it had been opened to provide access to a nearby cemetery and the adjacent neighborhood, now called Baba Zahara, the Gate of Flowers, named after the gate itself. It is called Herod's Gate after a Christian tradition, which, probably incorrectly as we now know, held that Herod Antipas's residence was nearby. The only open gate on the east side of Jerusalem is the Lions Gate. Because Jerusalem drops off on its east side into the deep Kidron Valley, the eastern wall of the city was traditionally less frequented. In more modern times, the gate provides access for Palestinians living on the Mount of Olives, on the eastern side of the Kidron Valley, and providing easy access to the Haram al-Sharif, or noble sanctuary, the Muslim name for the Temple Mount. The Arabic name is Bab Sitna Maryam, Gate of St. Mary, a reference to an even older Christian tradition, which held that Mary, the mother of Jesus, lived near here after the resurrection, at a site where a church was later built. As for the Christians themselves, they call the gate St. Stephen's Gate, believing that near here the first Christian martyr, St. Stephen, was stoned. Jews know it as the Gate of Yehoshaphat, named after the Kidron Valley, which was once called the Valley of Yehoshaphat. The name Lion's Gate doubtlessly comes from the emblems of wildcats which appear on the wall. These are commonly assumed to be lions, though this is sometimes disputed. The gate was badly damaged in Arab-Israeli fighting in 1948 and has been almost completely rebuilt. From inside the Lion's Gate, Christians begin the Via Dolorosa, or Way of Sorrows, a route which takes them through much of the Old City on a walk traditionally held to be the same as Christ's walk through Jerusalem to the cross. The gate most near to the western wall is called Dung Gate. This name derives from the biblical book of Nehemiah, which mentions a dung gate in the vicinity, though archaeology has confirmed this is merely a name and not the exact spot where the biblical gate stood. It is also called Silwan Gate, after the neighborhood just south of the Old City, or Mughrabi Gate, meaning Gate of the Moors or Moroccan Gate, because it once provided access to a small neighborhood known as the Mughrabi Quarter, where North African immigrants had once lived. The neighborhood survived until after the Six-Day War of 1967, when much of it was paved to make way for the large Western Wall Plaza which occupies the site today. Though heavily frequented by Jewish visitors to the Kotel, the Jewish name for the Western Wall, the gateway originally saw much rarer use, and was much smaller, until it was also heavily damaged in the 1948 war. The gate was rebuilt by Jordan in 1952, and was again renovated by Israel after 1967. It looks very different today from historical imagery. The last of Jerusalem's open gateways is the Zion Gate, in today's Armenian Quarter. Originally, Jerusalem extended to the southern edge of what is today called Mount Zion, or the Western Hill, a large mount which overlooks the deep Hinnom Valley below. But when the current wall was built in the 1500s, the line of the fortifications left the southern flank of the mount outside of the city's wall, leaving an important shrine known as the Tomb of Nabi Dawid, or the prophet David, as in King David of the Bible, outside of the walls. Tradition holds that this so infuriated the reigning sultan that he had the wall's architects executed. Their graves are still shown to tourists near Jaffa Gate, though there is no inscription on the headstone to confirm the legend. Like the Lion's Gate, the geography of Jerusalem and its steep surrounding valleys means the Zion Gate has been traditionally less frequented than the city's other entrances, being used primarily to access King David's tomb and the adjacent cenacle, or upper room, the room held by Christians to be the site of the Last Supper.